Hi and welcome back to Urban and Rural Survival. My name is Kevin Hammond, and in today's episode we're going to be talking about drones and the use of drones by preppers and people wanting to increase their level of information, their intelligence gathering abilities, and generally just people who are interested in drones. We'll also be covering some of the legal aspects of using a civilian drone in South Africa, what you can and can't do, the pros and cons of drones. There are some negatives that you need to be aware of, and also the evolution of drones, how drone use has evolved so much over the last 30 years and how they've really come into their own and how they are going to be a force multiplier in the future. So you really need to look forward to getting yourself a drone, or at least understanding a bit more about drones. So if you like this episode, guys, please hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps my channel. And let's find out a bit more about drones. A drone will benefit a prepper in a number of ways. By having a drone, a civilian prepper gets access to a whole other world that was previously denied to them. The world of aerial photography and aviation. One needs only to think of a documentary film set to see the usefulness of drones. Before the widespread adoption of drones, a film crew would have to hire a helicopter with a qualified cameraman to shoot any form of aerial shots or long views. Even as recently as the mid-2000s, they would require a large film crew and an even larger budget to shoot any halfway decent documentary. But with the advent and adoption of drones and the miniaturization of digital video cameras, that has all changed. It's now possible for solo filmmakers to film themselves and take amazing aerial shots and B-roll, all without having to carry any heavy equipment. And it is the advancement of digital cameras and the mass installation of small radio transmitters and receivers that can transmit both high-quality video and also instantaneous movement instructions to the drone that has allowed this technology to really take off. People had remote-controlled planes in the 1980s and 90s, but it is the data link technology that allowed civilian-owned drones to really become feasible. That's not to say that there are no negative sides to drones, because there are. As I mentioned, the main technological breakthrough came with the data link. Batteries are still as ineffective as they've ever been. I may be exaggerating a bit since battery technology has evolved, but the truth is that the limited battery life is the biggest downside of modern drones. My drone, a Mavic DJI-2, has 4 batteries. In order to charge all 4 batteries and the remote controller, I need about 6 hours of electricity. This will then give me about 7 minutes flight time per battery, for a total flight time of under half an hour. After that, the batteries will all be flat and need recharging. And whilst more expensive drones will have a longer flight time and range, it'll still be a lot less than you'd think. Large petrol drones overcome this problem, but they are the size and complexity of manned aircraft. Another downside of drones, which control the aircraft using a cell phone, is that you have to install an app and then synchronize the cell phone and the drone and the controller, which, if I'm honest, is not always easy, and sometimes it can take longer than the flight time of the drone itself. Once again, the larger, more complex drones overcome this problem, but it is very frustrating. Additionally, drones make a lot of noise, so if you don't want to give away your position, or upsetting neighbors or dogs rubs you the wrong way, then drones may not be something for you. And finally, another thing to remember is that drones require constant radio feeds to fly and transmit images and video. If this radio link is severed, either by interference or jamming, then the drone has little use. And with the increasing availability of anti-drone systems, cell phone jammers, and other electronic warfare devices, drones definitely have their limitations. With that out of the way, let's discuss the many uses a prepper or any survival-minded person may have for drones. Navigation. You may be out hiking or hunting or bugging out following a disaster, and you find yourself in an area surrounded by tall trees or in a canyon unable to see out, and be unaware of where you are and how close or far away you are from landmarks, such as a road or buildings. In such a situation, having a drone that can fly up above the trees or rocks can give you a whole new perspective and situational awareness. We have all heard stories of people lost in the bush who perished a short distance away from help. With a drone, you'll get a much better understanding of your surroundings in relation to the wider world. Scouting. A drone can be sent out either under remote control or on a pre-programmed course to reconnoiter the terrain ahead. And with regards to the previous topic of navigation, this drone scouting can help you avoid precarious terrain and plan the most efficient route to follow. This also applies in dense urban areas, especially during wartime, where it would be dangerous to physically traverse structures and obstacles. You can also scout for resources and determine the scope and intensity of damage following a large disaster. This will allow you to better plan your actions, whether they are for rescue or to escape. In cases of search and rescue, or the recovery of stolen livestock, a drone gives you the ability to see and go into places that would otherwise be impossible. Reconnaissance and the identification of threats. The most obvious tactical advantage a drone gives a prepper is the ability to see what's going on around him from a vantage point he would otherwise never have. And this allows the prepper to then see threats emerging and plan the appropriate response. For instance, in the case of rioting, a drone allows you to see where the rioting is and put in place the necessary roadblocks or response units to protect an area before the rioters get there. Another use during civil unrest would be to send your drone out ahead of you to check for roadblocks. Blocking a road with large rocks and burning tires happens every time there is a protest in South Africa, no matter how minor. During times of major rioting, it can be deadly to drive down the wrong road and be stopped. We saw recently how Hamas massacred civilians who ran into their roadblocks. Being able to plan a route past potential threats, whether for escape, resupply or rescue purposes, can mean the difference between life and death in an SHTF situation. Not only will a drone allow you to spot checkpoints, but it will also enable you to optimize your own defensive positions by showing you likely infiltration routes that you may have missed from ground level. And conversely, a drone will spot weak points in an enemy's defenses if you have to plan an attack for whatever reason. Let's now take a look at the laws covering drone use in South Africa. As with most things in this country, South Africa's drone laws are some of the strictest and most draconian in the world. The most important regulation, and in my opinion the most unfair one, is that if you are planning on using your drone in any commercial venture, you will have to be a certified drone pilot. This certification is intensive and costs over 20,000 Rand, well over 3 times the price of an entry-level drone. So whether you're a wedding photographer wanting to take a few pictures of a wedding, or a real estate agent displaying properties, if you stand to make money off the use of your drone, you will need a license and certification. So where does this leave you as a prepper? Luckily, if you don't intend to use your drone to make money, then you fall into the category of a hobbyist, and the rules are less stringent. That's not to say that there are no rules, because there are. The most important is that you may not fly your drone within 10 kilometers of an airport or aerodrome, and you may not fly your drone over or photograph national key points like power stations, military bases, or prisons. The other key regulation is that you may not fly your drone within 50 meters of people without their permission, and your drone cannot exceed a height of 50 meters from the ground. These regulations are not things that are widely practiced by drone owners I've seen. I've seen drones whiz past people at festivals, and most bigger drones routinely fly at great height. Like exceeding the speed limit or drinking behind the wheel, it's technically illegal, but only becomes a problem when you cause an accident or run into the police. And whilst I would never advocate for anyone to disregard the law, The truth is that you only really get into trouble when you fly your drone in a way that you become a nuisance, either by flying it in an unsafe manner or by invading somebody's privacy. If you fly your drone with a sense of respect for people and the environment around you, then the long arm of the law is not likely to catch up with you. And on the topic of law enforcement, I would like to end this video with a discussion about the evolution of drone warfare. It goes without saying that possession of explosives is illegal, and any attempt to use your drone as a weapons platform would be highly illegal. Even this handgun fitted to a drone by a teenager in America would be illegal in South Africa, since the Firearms Control Act states that a gun must be under the control of its owner or in a safe. But a true understanding of the future of drones would not be complete without an academic insight into how they are used in armed conflicts, both by state and non-state actors. History of drone warfare. Seeing a battlefield from a high up, beyond the trees and smoke, is as old as aviation itself. The first military aircraft were observation balloons, which have been around since the early 1800s. These balloons still saw massive use in World War I, but they were superseded by manned heavier-than-air aircraft that could fly far over enemy lines. It was these observation aircraft that could patrol the battlefield and call in artillery against any target that had the biggest impact during the war. The first military drones, that is, unmanned aircraft that were designed to take pictures as opposed to cruise missiles and guided bombs, emerged in the 1970s. Called RPVs, or remotely piloted vehicles, at the time, their most famous use came in 1982, when Israel used RPVs to locate, confuse, and destroy Syrian air defenses before their invasion of Lebanon. RPVs were common in the 1980s, with South Africa even deploying a squadron of them to Angola. There they successfully helped the G5 artillery pieces destroy targets from miles away. And it is as an artillery observation platform that the drone finds its most common use today. Artillery can bring down a far greater weight of munitions than any drone could possibly carry, so designating a target for a gun 20 miles away can have an enormous impact on the outcome of a battle. In the early 2000s, with the start of the War on Terror, the use of drones changed. The Predator RPV was initially designed as a larger version of your standard military observation platform. What made it different was the fact that against enemies with no radar warning system, it could fly at a height that could not be seen or heard in ordinary conditions. It could also attack targets itself, instead of designating them for some other system, as had hitherto been the case. And so we saw the introduction of what would from now on be called drone warfare. For over a decade, the US military had a monopoly on the use of drones against its enemies, and it became the weapon of choice for eliminating high-value targets. It was this high-tech killing machine that created a drone mania, and the first rotor-wing civilian drones began to appear on the world's markets in the mid-2000s. And it was from the small, affordable commercial drones that the next chapter in drone warfare would be written. ISIS became the first non-state actor to use civilian drones on the battlefield. It was a tactic soon copied by most militant groups, and is now a widespread threat to stronger armies across the Middle East. But it is the war in Ukraine that has seen the biggest explosion and evolution of drone warfare and use. When the conflict started, Russia was the only party to possess drones, relying on their own old-style RPVs to locate targets. The Ukrainians, having lost air superiority, had to make do with large numbers of small civilian drones. The sheer numbers of these drones soon gave Ukraine the advantage, and they used them not only to locate targets and drop munitions, but as precision-guided weapons as well. The first-person view, or FPV drone, transmits its images directly to the goggles of the controller and is popular in racing drones. When fitted with an anti-tank warhead, it becomes a cheap, expendable guided bomb. The Ukrainian side used these FPV drones to great effect against the invading Russian forces. The Russians, however, were quick learners and soon started building their own expendable FPV drones and using them en masse. They have also developed new hunter-killer drone systems like the Lancet system, and the tables have turned. As of now, Russia has the advantage on the drone front and uses its massive fleet of small, cheap drones to destroy state-of-the-art NATO equipment. With their advantage in electronic countermeasures, the situation is not likely to change. Which brings us to the end of this video. I hope you guys will look into getting a drone for your shit hits the fan setup. It is a massive force multiplier. Please like and subscribe, stay safe, stay legal, and have fun.